Welcome to the 217 podcast, presented by Decatur Earth Mover Credit Union and hosted by me, Jess Younghouse. In the podcast, we're going to talk about the Decatur community and the people that make it great. Thanks for listening and thanks for watching. We hope you enjoy it. Welcome back to the 217 podcast. I'm here with Jared McClain from Zambu Liquors. Welcome, Jared. Thanks for joining us today.
Thank you for having me. I appreciate being on the 217.
Yeah, so we've had some fun just kind of chatting here before we're rolling. Tell me a little bit about where you're from in the 217 and where you've been since the 217 and what brought you back.
Yeah, that's a great question. So I grew up in Shelbyville.
Okay.
And I lived there my whole life, graduated from Shelbyville High School, went to Illinois State, and then once I got out of high school, I was obviously pretty young and didn't know what I wanted to do yet. And I had worked for Edward Jones starting right out of school. And I had a good friend that was a financial advisor for them and said, who do you know that can like talk and likes to hang out with people? And he's like, well, let's have Jared do this. And they said, we're going to put you in Springfield. And I'm thinking, I'm 21. I haven't even been out of the country yet. So that ended quickly.
You don't seem like a financial advisor.
I know.
In the short time I've known you.
Thank you.
Don't strike me as financial
I do like numbers,
advisor.
but those guys are awesome. I just was like, this is not for me. So I moved to Chicago. I had some buddies that I got to Illinois State with that lived up there. It seemed like everyone, once we graduated, they would head north. It was cold and a concrete jungle. And so I stayed up there for a couple years and got a position with Jimmy John's, the sandwich company.
Okay. Who is that? Is Charleston 217? That's also a 217 company, right?
I believe so. I think Charleston might be.
I think so. We're going to pretend like it is.
Okay, yeah.
It's a 217 company.
Which that was where the first store ever was.
Yep.
But their headquarters was out of Champaign. And one of my other buddies was like, hey, I can get you this gig traveling 48 weeks out of the year. I'm like, that sounds fun. I'm young. I haven't seen that much of the country yet. So for about 5 years, I would leave on a Sunday and drive or fly somewhere and would get home late Friday night, put my bags down, eat and drink for 36 hours, do laundry, then head back out on the road.
Okay.
So once that happened and I secured that role with Jimmy John's doing marketing and public speaking, I basically called my mom in Shelbyville and was like, I'm moving all my stuff to your basement. There's no need to pay rent anywhere. I'm not home. So once that came to an end, throughout my travels, I had really enjoyed Nashville, Tennessee. Okay. I am a fan of having a good time and country music. So I was like, the people down here seem nice. I never lived, I had been in Chicago, for a couple years, but so I settled down in Nashville for about 5 years. Okay. Started Zambu whenever I was down there. Okay. But had launched at Lake of the Ozarks in Missouri.
Oh, yeah.
So it was a hefty 8-hour drive for me to leave Nashville, go to the lake, do my thing, go back. At the time, my girlfriend Jamie and our dog Mac lived there. She's now my wife. Okay. And it was just a lot of driving. And I was like, hey, babe, to make this business go, I feel like I need to be in market even more. Sure. So we moved from Nashville to St. Louis. Okay. And throughout this whole time, I knew she was the one. And we knew that eventually we wanted to end up back in Shelbyville. Okay. I mean,
was she from Shelbyville?
So she was born down around the St. Louis area. Okay. But her father was a principal, and so he had randomly got a job up around Shelbyville.
Oh, okay, cool.
And so that's how she tells people, yes, Shelbyville is my hometown because she spent a lot of time there. So we knew that eventually we wanted to be back. We were in St. Louis. I told her whenever we left Nashville, I said, we're going to sell my condo in Nashville, rent a house in St. Louis. I was like, I will try to find one in the nicest neighborhood in St. Louis. So I found a house for rent in Webster Groves. The rentals were going in like 24 hours. So I literally was driving to Lake of the Ozarks for work one day. She found the house. I called the lady. I was like, the pictures look good. It's in the neighborhood. We'll take it. So the first time she saw this home that we were going to live in for 2.5 years was when we pulled up in a U-Haul, and I'm like, here it is.
This stuff.
So that got us a lot closer to home. Then COVID hit. She was working from home. For my role in Zambu, I visit our accounts, which are grocery stores, liquor stores, and bars. So with COVID shutting everything down, it kind of worked out that a house popped up in Shelbyville. And we knew that was our long-term plan, but it was just very serendipitous that my old baseball coach had got a job in Effingham, needed to sell his home. We've been friends for decades, and literally just showed up one Sunday, checked out the house, and so we moved back to Shelbyville in July of 2020.
Awesome.
So it'll be 3 years this summer, which is wild to think about. So that's where I'm at, and that's where I'll stay.
What's your favorite thing about Shelbyville?
Well, our family is there. I enjoy the small town living. I mean, it's, I feel like perspective is everything. And I feel that I was lucky enough, and I'm grateful that I got to experience Chicago and Nashville and St. Louis, and then traveling and seeing all these different cities. Because, of course, you'll meet people from small towns that are like, I can't wait to get out of here. But I got to a point that I'm like, I can't wait to go back.
Yep.
And I'm lucky enough, the flexibility that I have with what I do for Zambu. I mean, I have a little car that has a Zambu wrap on it. So if I've got my car and my phone, I can live anywhere.
Sure.
And so moving back was fun. I feel like we're lucky to have the lake there and all the trails around the lake and things to do. So the people probably first and foremost, and my family being there. My favorite hamburger spot ever, Drewby's, shout out to you guys, is in Shelbyville. It can't be beat. I traveled all over the place. And so, I'm very happy to be back in the 217.
What was your favorite city you visited traveling for Jimmy John's?
Oh, that's a fantastic question. Austin, Texas is awesome.
I've heard that. I've never been.
So I actually was just there like 4 weeks ago.
Yeah, I hear it's wonderful.
So it's really fun. A lot of like different eclectic restaurants and bars to go to if you're of age. Really cool music scene that they have down there. It seems like Austin and Nashville are kind of similar.
Okay.
So people I would meet down there would say, Austin was getting too expensive, so people would move up to Nashville. And I was like, if Austin's expensive, like I thought Nashville was getting crazy.
Yeah.
So Austin was fun. I did get to visit the West Coast a lot. That was a good time. I would have never traveled to like the Northwest, so I've spent a lot of time like in the Seattle area. I would not do that like on my own, but it was at least neat to go out there and see. Like it just seems like a different world.
It is.
I got lucky in my time. I probably spent like a total of 25, 30 days throughout the 5-year stint I had of traveling, and it rained like 2 of those days.
Oh, well, that's lucky.
So, I don't know if I just timed it up, but I'm like, it's beautiful out here.
What's everybody complaining about?
I know, like, this place is not depressing at all. It's really pretty. The climate's pretty nice. So that was fun. We didn't so much go to, like, the Northeast very much, but, I would hit up anywhere from Seattle to like a small town in the middle of Ohio. Yeah. Like it was wild. There was no rhyme or reason where I would go. You think it would be regionalized, but I would get my assignments and just book my travel and I was off to the races. So
all right.
There's a lot of cool places I feel like in the United States if you can get out there and travel.
Yeah. Make it a point to visit the U.S. first.
Right. And then I finally got my passport, I think, for our honeymoon. So I was a late bloomer getting my passport.
Where'd you go for your honeymoon?
We went to Mexico. Okay. So we flew into Cancun, then drove. We had a shuttle down about an hour and a half south to like Riviera Maya area. So it was like close to Tulum where all the Instagram models go. But I mean,
Sure.
I feel like I have a face for radio. So,
Okay.
you know, I wasn't accepted
That's
there.
not
so.
why you went.
Yeah, no. We went for the food and the beach and to hang out at the pool.
Perfect.
So yeah, no, but I haven't utilized it else. I haven't been to Europe yet or anything like that. One of these days I'll make it, but we're more of warm climate beach type of people.
All right, fair enough. How does the Decatur weather or the 217 weather make you feel lately?
Yeah, it's not fun.
Feels like Seattle, honestly.
Yeah, the last few days it has been. I literally was in Tampa this week, and it was 82 and sunny every single day.
Yeah.
And so they would all make fun of me that I was getting on a plane to head back north.
Yeah.
But there is no place like home, so I don't mind it.
For sure.
Maybe we appreciate it more whenever the spring actually hits.
Yeah. This is second winter.
Yes.
Or fourth. I don't know what number
yes,
one.
I agree.
Okay, so Zambu. Zambu is you've told me, a 60 proof vodka-based liquor you created.
I did.
Okay. How does one go about creating a liquor?
I don't know how much time you have, but so the short of it is...
The short of it's good.
Yes. So throughout my travels with Jimmy John's, I would stay in a city for the week. So I show up Sunday, we'll work with like local franchisees. I would do local marketing for them. During the school year, I would go into high schools and kind of give this motivational speech on like how hard work pays off, getting your first job. It was kind of a back-end marketing scheme because we give them free sandwiches
for
too.
Sure. Okay.
I don't know if you've seen Role Models before with Paul Rudd.
Yep.
So, you know, I was basically the Minotaur of sandwiches. And so I ended up in Denver, Colorado in 2011. My coworkers were like, hey, we want sushi tonight. I wasn't a big fan yet. You know, I was still a young pup. I was only like 25 at the time.
All right.
And I've started to dabble more throughout the years.
Okay.
But we go to a sushi restaurant, and they had a very interesting flowering herb that's indigenous to the state of Para, Brazil.
Okay.
And it's most commonly known as a buzz button.
Okay.
And they call it a buzz button because when you eat it, whether in a dish or a lot of craft cocktail bars have started to use the buzz button as a garnish.
Okay.
But when you consume it, it gives off a very tangible tingle or buzz.
Okay. All right.
And I mean, it's only like the size of a blueberry.
Okay.
Like some chefs use it in a sorbet. I had a chef from Manhattan call me, randomly found out about Zambu that we were using the buzz button. And he thought it was interesting because he had a ceviche on his appetizer list that he would crumble up the buzz button and sprinkle over the top so you would get this sensory experience.
Okay.
So that night, I got served this little flower because I'm like, hey, waitress, the Wagyu burger was fantastic, but I want to try this little buzz button you're using. Will you go in the back and get it? So she brings it out. I chewed up like a Skittle, and it was like 1,000 packs of Pop Rocks all at once. It really was. And like you almost start to drool, like it's and I mean, it's gross. You're eating a flower, you know, so it's like chewing up a dandelion out of the front yard. But after that experience, I continued to travel, and I would go to parties in Nashville, and I would buy these flowers and make my buddies eat them, and then I would make them like a little shot. And I was like, how fun would it be to figure out how to infuse this flower and just into a neutral base spirit? So I'm like, let's do, you know, in Zambu, it's just an Iowa corn 60 proof vodka, gluten-free, very simple. Like if we could figure out how to infuse the experience, the sensory experience from a buzz button and build a simple taste profile on top, I feel like we would have something truly different to the spirits world.
Okay.
Because I mean, there's 1,000 different flavored vodka lines.
Yeah,
I mean, everybody has their, hey, this is why I'm different. But I was like, if I can be the one that comes out with this first and figures out how to produce it, I might, you know, have the upper hand on the game.
Sure.
So
first of all, where do you get these flowers? Can you just like buy them?
yeah, so you can buy them in small quantities. Like if you jump online and Google buzz buttons, they're also known as the Szechuan flower. It gives off a similar experience as like a Szechuan peppercorn that chefs will use. They're known as the Electric Daisy. The
Okay.
Brazilians called them the toothache plant because if they had a toothache, they would make a paste out of them and rub them on their gums.
Does it work?
Yeah, I mean, in its raw form, it gives off kind of like a numbing, soothing effect.
Okay.
So like I would Google them. And they're expensive though.
Okay.
And so I thought to myself, like, there's no way I can make a brand around this if I can't buy these flowers directly from the source.
Right.
So like,
right.
I end up being able to get them from a farm out in California. We have since moved to a pure form extract.
Okay.
Because back in the day, whenever we were sold just at Lake of the Ozarks, it was a very tedious process to receive those flowers, extract the tingle component. And I was like, we got to figure this out.
Yeah.
So 2018, I spent that whole year tinkering with like the production process to get it to a point where I can make it, something that would go, from one state and be able to spread out through the Midwest. And now we've started to add on a few southern states as well. Okay. But yeah, I mean, to start a liquor company, I did not have that background, as you know. I mean, I was the sandwich boy.
Sure.
And so I literally cold called distilleries all over the Midwest. And some guys will do a contract distill. Okay. Where if they want to, make more money on the side, they will do projects under their DSP, their license to produce. And so just through calling enough people, I found someone willing to take on my project. So I would go in and we'd work on it. And so that was the early days. It's moved to a couple different bigger facilities that can produce more. Okay. And so literally it was just me badgering people.
I know in the early days, what's it like calling this might sound mean, but I'm like imagining Tommy Boy sitting in a office lighting a little toy car on fire.
No, and it was literally just me cold calling people. I mean, I feel like if you ask enough questions, yes, some people are gonna tell you to go fly a kite, but you'll get to that right person that will eventually at least lead you in the right direction. So yeah, this was not overnight. Like this was a few years of figuring out who to work with, how to produce it on a scale that fit our needs, but could also grow with as we start adding on more sales territory. So yeah, like it's definitely been a process, but it was literally just me calling people.
How'd you come up with the name?
That's a great question. So one of the slang terms that the common layman term for the buzz button was Jambu. Okay. So Zambu with a J. And I was like, hey, that would be cool to kind of pay homage to, the locals in Brazil, call it Jambu, push it through the trademark office. Then I get a call one day from the head attorney from Jamba Juice, the smoothie company. And he lived in California. Okay. And he's like, hey, Jared, this is Howard, the head attorney for Jamba Juice. My friends call me Howie.
Howard.
And I'm like, well, I'm not going to call you Howie because we are not friends, so I'll call you Howard. And basically, he was going to sue my pants off if I tried to use Jambu because he thought it was too close to Jamba Juice. And there would be consumer confusion. And I'm like, Howard, man, like, I'm not going to have some 12-year-old kid walk into a bar, try to order a smoothie and get a shot of my booze. But nonetheless, I'm like, I have to come up with a new name. Okay. And in Portuguese, their native tongue, Zumbido translates to buzz. Okay. So I'm like, buzz button, the Z from Zumbido. I'll drop the J, add the Z. Literally made my own word, Zambu. But I'm like, 5 letters, 2 syllables, very easy to remember. Sure. There's not a lot of Z names out there. I feel like if I sat you down and presented you 10 products and said, hey, check out the label, scan them over, then came back, even the next day and said, Jess, I need you to write down these 10 products. I feel like Zambu would probably be at the top of the list. Sure. Very easy to remember. Yeah. So it was just kind of by chance, and I feel like it worked out because like the logo looks much better with the Z, and it's got a cool story behind it. Yeah. One of these days, when we really make it big, I'll probably send a couple bottles to my boy Howard out in California.
Stick it to the man.
Yeah, and say, hey, thanks for the inspiration. So no, that's a fun story. It wasn't fun at the time, but because this was on like a Thursday that I got the call, and the original run of T-shirts was supposed to be done on Monday.
Oh,
so I had to call the printer, and I was like, hold the presses because those shirts will, be rags after if you print them. So that worked out, luckily.
Okay.
Yeah.
So tell me what level of, how do you feel you can share with somebody else, like the level of go-getter you have to consistently be turned down?
Yeah.
In having to start again, or like with a name being told no and having to start again. I mean, that seems like a pretty consistent storyline.
Yes.
Probably starting any business, I'm just going to assume. But in your instance, it sounds like that happened a lot.
Yeah, and it still does to this day. And I feel like I don't know if there truly are overnight successes out there. So, I mean, we all see different products or whatever. Like, man, this came out of nowhere. Well, whenever you dig deeper into it, come to find out it's been around for 7-10 years.
Right, yes.
And, I will read multiple times or see something on, a business video I watch or whatever that someone's like, yeah, man, I was grinding for 8 years, not getting paid at all. And just waking up every day. And for me, it's, yes, we have spread out with Zambu, but I realize whenever I go out into any given market, it doesn't matter if we've been in that market for 3 years or we just secured that market recently. Like I launched South Carolina last Friday.
Okay.
So I was down in like Charleston and Columbia. But it doesn't matter what market I'm in. I just have to wake up and say, I know that this is brand new to probably 90% of the people that I will talk to today. I've been in the trenches for years now, but they don't know that.
Right.
So I have to bring the same enthusiasm and energy because they're brand new to Zambu. And so that's cool whenever, they experience it for the first time, they hear the story and they're like, man, this is really cool. So that kind of just adds to your cup and you're like, all right, I can wake up tomorrow and do the same thing.
Yep.
So it's like, I feel like consistency obviously is key with anything. Like would I have loved to have been, I think we're in 8 states now. Like, would I love to be in 15 or 20 by now? Of course I would.
Sure.
But you got to grind and, figure out what is your key strategy, whatever business it may be in, that's going to fit. Cause I don't want to like go too thin.
Sure.
I'd rather go deeper than go thin.
Right.
And be able to handle what we have currently. So yeah, the consistency and having a short-term memory loss, I feel like, just to be like, because and it doesn't, some people, it's wild. I meet so many different palates and it's a 60 proof vodka base. So if you buy any booze at the store, that's a pretty middle of the road, but still like some people will drink Zambu, be like, this is fantastic. Some people don't like it. I don't have to have everybody like it. Like that's not what I'm trying to do. Sure. Like I'm trying to find like our core demo and people who enjoy something unique and cool like this.
Sure.
So yeah, I mean, waking up every day and being like, hey, I got to get it done.
Yeah. Okay. So what flavors is Zambu?
So we have 2.
Okay.
The original one is our tropical grapefruit.
Okay.
Very simple citrus profile.
Okay.
It's red and pink grapefruit.
Okay.
Natural flavors in there, not too sweet, not too tart.
Okay.
So that one hit the St. Louis market about April of 19.
Okay.
And that was our only SKU, our only flavor that we had. And so from April of 19 up until COVID, I basically would go promote myself. I was a one-man wrecking crew at that time. And so, I mean, I'm 37 right now and I still party all the time, but I would meet a lot of our younger demo, our 25-year-olds that would say, hey, we like the citrus, but would you ever do a berry version? I love wild berry Skittles. So I'm like, okay, yeah, I could get down with that.
Is wild berry the best flavor?
I feel.
Is that widely agreed upon or not?
And about anything, I feel like yes, but I'm a big strawberry man as well. So fruit snacks, strawberry all day long.
Right.
But I was like, okay, that would be cool because we could have 2 flavors, keep it very simple. Like I'm never going to be one of these like generic flavored vodka lines that comes out with 12 different flavors to overload, the shelf or a bar account with. So I feel like the wild berry, which is raspberry, blueberry, and blackberry, equally mixed. I feel like it complements the citrus of the grapefruit well. So yeah, it's cool to see like some markets, like mainly the bigger cities, they consume more of the grapefruit because it goes very well in multiple cocktails. Okay. So like craft cocktail artists like it to tinker with. The wild berry, it does go in a few drinks as well, but most often it is enjoyed just by itself. Okay. It's very berry. But yeah, they both have that 60 proof vodka base, and the Buzz Button signature tingle in there is the only reason I sold everything I've ever owned to even start this business. Okay. I just didn't want to wake up at 80 and say, I wish I would have tried that.
Yeah, for sure.
So, fair enough. The option of failure was, more appealing to me than waking up at 80 and being like, well, this is the only life I have.
That opportunity.
Yeah. And now I'm an old man. So I was like, let's just go for it. So,
okay. Yeah. So what are some of your favorite drinks that are made with Zambu?
Great question. One of the most easy peasy ones that was in the early days of Zambu when it was just at the lake, either flavor with like Simply Lemonade from the store.
Oh, yeah.
With a lime wedge. Fantastic summer drink. Okay. I like Moscow Mules with ginger beer in there. All right. I find the ginger beer is polarizing. Some people like it, some people don't. But we use our tropical grapefruit, and we call it the Zambu is our Moscow Mule. Okay. And so, like, the ginger beer goes well with the grapefruit profile. When you consume in a cocktail, you get this kind of gradual velvety tongue. You still experience the Buzz Button. Obviously, it's a little diluted since it's in the cocktail. But the Zambu is fantastic. We do a Zambu Spritz, which is just a riff on the Aperol Spritz. Okay. Which Aperol Spritzes are very popular. They're bitter. Aperol's bitter, but Zambu adds a little sweetness to it. Then you get the sensory experience of the Buzz Button. So, yeah, I'd say the Zambu and the Spritz are my favorite two cocktails. Okay. But most of the time, I drink beer and just drink Zambu straight up.
Should we do it straight up now?
We can.
Is now the time?
Yes, now is the time. Okay. I'll pour you a little taster of the tropical grapefruit.
The OG.
The original. And in those like 10 months that I had, so you can sip on it, you can shoot it. Some people even swish it. Like there's college bars, it's wild, but they will pour you a full shot and they'll make you swish Zambu. It's wild because the longer you hold it, the more it tingles.
Yeah.
But yeah,
maybe
it was like,
I should do that then, just for the full experience.
Since this is your first time, I would. Hey, thanks for having me on. Cheers.
Okay, I'm swishing it.
So as it settles in, you'll notice like on your tongue, the Buzz Button settles in. You kind of start to drool back here a little bit. So it's
almost like spicy.
So the Szechuan peppercorn, that's why I meet chefs and I start to tell them about the flour. They're like, it's kind of like a Szechuan peppercorn. It's like a spice. I'm like, yeah, that's why one of the slang terms for it is the Szechuan flour because it gives off that effect.
It's like warm now.
Yeah, and so, which I drink my Zambu just room temp neat. A lot of people keep it in the refrigerator or the freezer. I mean, at 60 proof, it will not freeze. Right. But like sometimes at home, I'll just do like 2 fingers of Zambu with just a shot of like lime juice in there and just sip on it like a bourbon.
I like that.
So yeah, I mean it's not overwhelming. No, you wouldn't be like at a bar and someone buys you a shot of Zambu and you're like, are my lips going to like melt off?
No, okay. I thought it was going to be like full blown Pop Rocks.
No, I wanted just a nice
this is
taper
good. This is good.
So now you can imagine if you mix that in a drink, whether it's a Zambu, our Zambu lemonade is called the Summer Zinger. You just kind of slightly get that over time. Yep. And it's really neat because like the more and more I got into markets, I meet more people who have experienced the flower,
Yeah.
whether at a restaurant, at a bar, out in Vegas at the Cosmo, they have the Chandelier Bar, and they have a drink that basically they give you the flower by itself, and you consume it before you have the.
Okay.
So like, you'll see the light bulb go off when I start to tell them the story.
Yeah.
They're like, I've had this. So it's cool to let people try this who have had it before, because they're like, oh yeah, it is kind of in there. So yeah, I feel like any product out there, especially in the spirits world, we look at the packaging, you know, we taste it, we smell it, but I thought if we could have that additional you know, sensory factor of, hey, there's something else in here that we could actually have something different to the marketplace.
Yeah, it makes it fun. Especially, I feel like this is right up young kids' alleys.
Yeah. I mean, we see like our main demo is like that young professional.
Yeah.
You know, 23, 24 to like 35.
Yeah.
But then, you know, my mom drinks Zambu and Fresca all the time.
Yeah.
So she's a Zambassador as well.
I like Zambu and Fresca.
It's good.
I'm a Fresca junkie.
Yeah, she lives on a little farm out in the middle of nowhere, and I showed up one summer and she was drinking Zambu and Fresca. She actually topped it with a little bit of champagne to give it some more bubbles.
I'm into that.
And it was
Who's your mom?
Her name's Kim.
We should have brought her on.
I know, she's the greatest.
She sounds like my kind of lady.
Yeah, no. She is, one of the very first Zambassadors out there. So any given time I show up to her house, she's normally wearing a Zambu t-shirt.
Perfect.
Yeah. She's got a whole collection of them.
How many Zambassadors do you have?
I just throw that term around. Like when we first started down in Missouri, naturally, Columbia, Missouri, where Mizzou's at, was like our first college town that we would go to. So, like, if someone was over 21 and they like to have a good time, like, we give them free gear and bottles and stuff to kind of, promote and tell their friends. So that's kind of where the term Zambassador came from. So now I just use it if I meet someone like in Tampa this week and they're really into it. I'm like, you can be our next local Zambassador. So no, people ask if I sit around and think of Z words all day and I've exhausted most of all of them, but I feel like we have a good collection of Z words that we use.
That's good. So can the flower be grown locally?
You could grow it at your house. Yeah. Like,
okay.
You can buy, so Splanthus is one of the more technical terms. Okay. So like you can get Splanthus seeds on Amazon if you wanted to grow it.
Okay.
But yeah, I have never like sat out to, have a little flower pot in my house with a heat lamp or anything. But some people have, like I met a guy in a bar in St. Louis. He really wasn't into modern medicine.
Oh.
So he would grow Splanthus buzz buttons and he would make like a tincture out of it and he would use it like he had teeth problems and he would kind of swish around. I'm like, hey man, you're using it for medicinal reasons. I'm using it for booze.
Yeah. I can seriously, after taking that shot, it does almost feel like whenever you have to get, if you're at the dentist.
Right.
Like the initial feeling that you get like after having that Novocaine. It is like that.
Without the needle.
Yeah, without the needle.
To our fans out there.
Yeah.
If you were to consume a buzz button in the raw form, it's about 10 times more potent than in Zambu. So we find like this. Sure. Because the pure form extract that we use is by far the most expensive part of the whole equation. And I wanted to make a product that, isn't $50-$60 on the shelf. Sure. So, and we ride that fine line since we use a pure form extract of how much we can put in there. So I feel like we've found this happy medium where we can produce it in larger quantities, keep the bottle price good. People still get, the experience of the buzz button. So, I feel like it's a win all the way around.
What's the favorite bar you've been to selling this?
Oh, wow. That's a great question.
Favorite, most fun, if those are the same thing, I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, probably my favorite bars, or if I don't want to narrow it down to one, but like where Zambu like kind of really got its name. So down at Lake of the Ozarks, there's a bar called Dog Days that's on the water. Like them and Shady Gators gave us our basically first chance in the spirits world. So like that's kind of where it started. So like if it weren't for them, saying, hey, yeah, we'll sell your product, which I mean, this was back in the day whenever I was making it like the small, it was in the middle of Kentucky. It was the very first guy I told you I talked to. So we're making it in this small distillery. Like it looked nothing like this. I mean, it was like version 1.0. And so that was when you literally could only buy it at Lake of the Ozarks for like the first 2 summers. So that was like the summer of 17 and 18 before 19 rolled around, and I had basically a more exponentially scalable recipe.
Okay.
So like those bars down at the lake are very near and dear to my heart. And then St. Louis took a hold of it, and there's, a string of bars on Cherokee Street in St. Louis that are really fun.
Okay.
That, I mean, they appreciate interesting things. So like I remember on Cherokee, there's Whiskey Ring, Yaquis. They had picked it up. TikTok Tavern was like one of the first kind of local neighborhood bars. 1860 Saloon had it too. So it was cool to see this like kind of organic growth from people going to the lake, trying our product and saying like, hey, we want to drink it back home.
Sure. Yeah. Because the Lake of the Ozarks is a destination. I mean, it's not like people live there, yes, but it's not like the majority of people that are going to bars down there probably live there full time. Right.
And so that was, key in meeting so many people from the Midwest.
Sure.
Because that's what opened doors to Illinois and Kansas. So right before COVID hit, those 2 states were like, we've had enough people consuming your product in Missouri. We would like to sell it here.
Okay.
So I was jazzed to have it in Illinois.
Yeah.
I'm like, my home state.
Yep.
They're now going to sell Zambu. So I launched Zambu in Illinois Valentine's Day Friday of 2020.
Okay.
There were like 8 cases of COVID. I'm like, this is our year. This is going to be awesome. And then St. Patty's Day is when all the bars got shut down. So I think we had
went
like
out in
5.
Chicago that weekend.
Oh, you did?
Even after JB and Mayor Lori said not to.
Right.
I didn't heed the warning.
Yeah.
I couldn't help it.
So yeah, you would have been out like literally because I think they shut them down on Thursday.
Yeah,
so you were probably
like
out Friday, Saturday.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Oh yes.
Well, we're both still here, but it was. I mean, I can see how that with small business and COVID, I was lucky to be nimble enough to kind of like. That's when I worked on the Wildberry profile.
Sure. Yeah.
I didn't have a mortgage payment for my own distillery to cover because if so, I would have gone out of business.
Sure.
And like you would hear stories of craft distilleries, like, I mean, what else can you do? Because obviously on the news, you'd see all these stories about, liquor sales are through the roof. I'm like, well, that's, the $1 billion brands that are selling handles of just vodka that people are buying. So for us little guys, we couldn't get it. I mean, it's all about sips to lips. People trying it, then telling their friends. So we couldn't go do that.
Right.
So it was like, hey, let's hunker down, try to act busy, come up with new flavor profiles. So it was good to get back out there.
How many employees work at Zambu now?
So I went from this one-man wrecking crew. So I was handling the 3 states, Missouri, Kansas, Illinois.
Okay.
And I knew that if I ever wanted to like make this, a brand and get anywhere to being a national brand, that I couldn't do it all myself. I mean, the law and number says, I can't go to every single account, even in those 3 states, which I like to. I love to go visit the accounts, but I do, the accounting, the marketing with Sam.
Sure.
Like all the behind the scenes stuff, the production, like, so now I work with a group that helps to represent Zambu in several states. So there's about 7 of those guys. So like as a team collectively, I'd say there's about 8 people that work on Zambu. And so throughout those 8 states, certain people like we got a guy that lives in Austin, a gal that lives in Tampa, one of the guys lives in Chicago. So, just kind of spread out.
Sure.
But these are people who have been in the industry for, 20 years that have a vast network of people who they work with.
Sure.
The experience, like I've been in a few years, but, these guys have seen it all from, I'm the supplier side. I'm supplying Zambu to our distributors in each state, and then the distributors are the ones that basically take the orders from the store or the bar and deliver that. So yeah, it's been nice to have, people believe in Zambu and want to, see the potential and the exponential growth and be like, hey, yeah, we're going to help you in these different states.
Sure. You can buy Zambu here?
You can buy it in Central Illinois. I usually tell people, if you go to your local liquor store or wherever your favorite place to buy it is, and they don't have it, if you're like, hey, I just heard this podcast with the Zambu dude, I want to try this stuff. Normally, they're very good at getting in at least a few bottles or a case. So yeah, it's always, that's one of the challenges is making sure that, the store is stocked. When it sells out, it gets restocked. I mean, there's all kinds of follow-up that goes on with this business, whether it's on the store side or the bar side.
What's your favorite story to tell about Zambu?
It's a great question as well. Probably one of, we talked about like what it takes day in and day out. And I feel like in any business, like I don't care if you're painting houses, selling spirits, what you're doing, it does take, the yes man mentality, which in the early days, I was a big yes man. Like if I told people, if I have the date open on my calendar and it's something that I can go and hang out with others and spread the buzz, I'll be there. And it really started to work out. Like I would go do a lot of charity events in St. Louis where I would donate my time and the product, and I would make drinks for people, and inevitably I would meet someone that would say like, hey, this is really neat, and you're from the Midwest. Do you want to come to my charity event? Sure. And it just literally kept on snowballing and snowballing. Like as we have grown though, like I will look at certain events and be like, do I got to be in this state? Can I make it over there? But it's always been this like, this has to get done. And if there's going to be someone to do it, it's going to be me. Obviously, no one can tell the story better than I can. I mean, you can train people. And there was an order that we had standing in Missouri, and they wanted some Zambu because they were running low. And I still remember this day. We had this order. It was getting picked up on a Friday in Kentucky. I was in St. Louis at the time, had called down to the facility, make sure things were, hey, do we have this wrapped up? The truck's going to be there at like 10 a.m. on Friday to get this sizable order at the time, for me. Sure. And they're like, yeah, I don't know what you're talking about. Like there was some miscommunication and like the owner was out of town. And so the only option, I had to do this. So I literally got in my car, drove from St. Louis, the few hours down to where we were at in Kentucky. And I remember walking into the distillery on Thursday at 10 a.m. And I'm like, okay, before I walk out of here, I basically had to like bottle everything, package it, stack it, wrap it. I mean, this is a full blown, it wasn't like I just went in and grabbed bottles off the shelf. Right. Like this is from basically, ground zero. I had to complete the order. So I walked in Thursday at 10, and I remember when I pushed open the door, it was 7:15 a.m. on Friday morning, and like the sun was coming up, and there was no one in sight except my car out there. And I was like, what just happened? And so, yeah, that was just, I feel like I've heard a few people speak. I feel like I need to listen to more business podcasts, but I don't know if it would skew like my experience. Yeah. Like I like to, if I go anywhere, like since my days at Jimmy John's giving those speeches, I have still gone out to like high schools and places that the people knew that I would speak on, like working hard and different things. And I've got a whole list of stuff that I like to convey to especially people in the 217 or smaller areas. But yeah, it was like I want to say the grit of being like, if I don't do this, it's not going to get done. Right. And how's that going to look for my brand and my business? Right. So Yeah, I mean, I feel like gritty experiences like that, yeah, they aren't fun, but it makes a cool story.
Right.
And it got done. It got picked up that day.
Yep.
My guys in St. Louis that were, picking up that delivery had no clue that I just spent like 22 hours by myself doing this. And it went off without a hitch.
So what, outside of the things that you've already said, grit, taking care of things yourself, what do you tell to people that are ready to take the leap into entrepreneurship, whatever the business might be? What's the advice you give them?
Yeah, great question. So, believe it or not, before Zambu, I did have a plan that I knew that one day I wanted to act upon one of the ideas that came out of my head. So I knew that I wanted to be my own boss.
Okay.
So like I was preparing for this years in advance.
Okay.
So yes, I did quit my normal job that I had, but like there was a lot of years of preparation, like saving money.
Sure.
I made a few decent stock moves that I was able to cash in. So having a plan, like, yeah, you could be a 9-to-5 job right now, but you want to be somewhere, in 2 years or 5 years. So having that plan. But also I feel like a big thing that I learned was I let time be a barrier to entry for things in my life. So when I was young and I told you that I'm like, Springfield, I'm out of here, I'm going to Chicago. I worked for an attorney in Chicago, and he basically ran a marketing firm. And so I was on like the marketing side, and I worked with all these attorneys. And like, I thought it was interesting because one of the most fun classes that I had at Illinois State was actually an insurance class that I got to prepare like a whole case on.
Okay.
So like I got to basically go in and argue with someone for 85 minutes, and it was thrilling. And so I was like, maybe one day I could, be an attorney. And I got up to Chicago. I'm 23 maybe. And I'm working with all these attorneys, and I'm like, I could literally, they have their JD, they have their degree, but a lot of them just didn't have the communication,
right?
And, the people skills.
Yeah.
I'm like, I feel like I could crush this, but at the time I'm like, well, I got to go to law school. That's going to take 3 years. I'm going to be 26 by the time I get out of here.
That sounds insane. Like you were.
Oh, and I'm 37 now, but literally I'm like, no, there's no way. Like I can't afford the time, and it's just wild. So like, that was my first big lesson into like letting time being a barrier to entry for anything. Like time's going to go by no matter what we all do. So if there's something you want to do, get started on it because
now's the best time.
Right. So I feel like, that's something that I've experienced that I'm trying to, recall those experiences that I had and how I can utilize that. And obviously, I was born and raised in Shelbyville. I was from a small town. I get it. Like, when I went to high school, I took, the high classes that I could, but we didn't have, like, I got to Illinois State, and I'd meet my buddies that were like, I took this AP course and all this stuff, which now they might have different stuff.
Right.
And I feel like being from a small town, we shouldn't let that be an excuse. If you want to do something big, like, literally, if you talk to enough people, don't take no for an answer, and just like, you can make it out of anywhere. Yep. I truly feel like you can.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's what whenever I do speak to like smaller schools, if, in the past couple of years, like Jamie's dad, that's a principal, he had me come in and like speak to those kids. And I'm like, hey, I get it. You're from a small town, but get out there and at least travel. Like whether it's with a job, the military, you get to see cool places, like,
and meet people.
Meet people. Yeah. Like, yeah, it's not what you know, it's who you know.
Yeah.
I feel like who you know gets you there, what you know keeps you there. I feel like. So yeah, like, and I feel like the power of positive thinking goes a long ways. Okay. I don't know if it just helps our attitude and gratitude of, of putting out those positive vibes coming back to you, which is often hard. I mean, there's been so many days that I'm like, hey, you need to practice what you preach, buddy. You know, because it's easy to tell someone that, but when you're in the thick of it, you're like, man, you know.
It gets hard to live it.
Right. You know, you get kicked in the gut too many times over, you know, a few months. You're like, okay. So, but overall, I feel like, just the law of attraction and power of positive thinking is a real thing. All right. I feel like it is. Yeah. So,
what's your sales pitch? Do you have a sales pitch?
Yeah. So like, let's say we're
okay. First of all, how people can find Zambu here. If you can't find it, ask your local liquor
ask for
store.
it. Or if you're anywhere from Bloomington Normal South. So our distributor is out of Effingham, Kerner Distributing.
All right.
They've got a pretty big presence throughout central and southern Illinois. Okay. So like literally any bar or liquor store from McClain County south, they service. Okay. So like if you go in there like, hey, I heard about Zambu, let's try some.
Let's get it.
Literally their sales rep will throw a couple bottles on the order.
Are you on social media?
Yes, Zambu Liquors.
Okay.
On Instagram and Facebook.
Okay.
ZAMBU Liquors.
Okay. I'll say I have not tried a mixed drink, but get a shot first. If you've never tried it before, get a shot first. That's what I'm telling people.
And it's like, and that's how it started, you know, as the shooter brand. So people would always compare us to like Fireball and Rum-Shada. Yeah. But it was just really neat to see like our bartenders, whether it was in like a big high volume bar or like a nice craft cocktail bar, take this and say, look what I created. And so that's how all these drinks came about. Yeah.
Okay. Now let's finish with your sales pitch.
Yeah. So let's say like I'm hanging out at a party or a tasting, you walk by, and it's Friday today. So I'm like, which I wouldn't have known your name, but you walk through the door. I'm like, hey, Jess, it's Free Shot Friday. And you're like, oh, free shots. You come over. I'm like, you look at the bottles, that's a pretty bottle. And so I say, Zambu's a 60 proof vodka based spirit. We got a citrus profile with a red and pink grapefruit. We also have a wild berry one that has blueberry, raspberry, and blackberry. But the whole thing about this brand is that it is built on a little Brazilian flower known as a buzz button. And people are often like, buzz button, what's that? I'm like, they call it a buzz button because it will tangibly tingle your tongue when you consume it. I had it in a sushi restaurant, thought it was awesome. It was like Pop Rocks on steroids. So I thought, let's put it in a booze. Do you want to try a shot? And then 95% people say yes. So we'll try it and talk about it. And then I'll tell them how to mix it. So yeah, believe it or not, I can come up with like a 30-second spiel.
Elevator speech.
Yes. That's important when you're long-winded like me because I feel like I could talk for hours.
Talk all day.
Yes.
Thank you for joining us on the 217 podcast. And on behalf of everybody in the 217, I'm glad you came back to Shelbyville.
Thank you. It's great to be back. Like, I love it. It was fun. Jess, thank you for having me as well.
Yep.
All you 217 people out there, follow her. Try Zambu if you can.
Get the Zambu.
ZambuLiquors.com. Check it out too for a bunch of recipe ideas. But
all right, awesome.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Yep.
You have an outro?
C'est très jeune. It's already Thank you for joining us. Make sure to like and subscribe on whatever platform you're listening. And be sure to follow us for more content on our social media channels at Decatur Earth Mover Credit Union.